Hi everybody and welcome to my Unruly Housewife channel. Today I am going to show you how to decorate a glass jar using a filled in design. It's going to be using black polymer clay and some mica powders. I'm using, to get my texture, this texture sheet from Best Flexible Molds, and the design on this one is called Spilled Buttons. If you saw my craft haul video, you would have seen me unboxing this, and I can link to that actually at the end of the video, can't I? So what you need first of all is a strip of clay that is going to fit around your jar. This isn't trimmed yet because first of all I'm going to put my design on it. Now I was advised by somebody that the best way to do this is to actually lay the mould out first, and that did work really well, so I'm going to do it that way. I spritz my mould, so that's what I'm doing. This is just water in here. And then I'm going to lay my clay on top of it. And on top of the clay I'm going to use, oh dear, piece of hair. On top of the clay I'm going to put a piece of greaseproof paper or baking sheet, whatever you call it in your country. In the UK we call it greaseproof paper. So I'm going to lay that over the top, and I'm going to use this acrylic roller, but I'm going to use the end of it. Now I presume you could use a spoon or something for this, but I'm going to burnish over the paper, whoops, and onto the clay. Rolling out a sheet on your pasta machine that's long and thin can be a bit weird if you're new. It's quite hard to get it long, do you know what I mean? So I usually do like a square sheet and then fold it in half and run it through sort of lengthways, if that makes any sense. Believe me, I have a right game getting this done. So I've gone over my sheet now, and hopefully it's going to have a really nice clear imprint on it. Let's see, shall we? Oh, and it has. It's come out really nicely. I hear some sort of alarm going off, celebrating there, celebrating my success. Now we've got to carry on, and because I need this design to be longer than the actual sheet, which is a bit of a bind, but you know, this is real life. So I'm just going to kind of offer this up, see if I can get it in roughly the same place, on roughly the same line. Put that on there. And just finish off the design, and I'm going to be a little bit, I'm not going to be too straight along the edge because I want it to blend in, if that makes any sense. I'm not putting as much even pressure on it. What I'm going to do at the edge there is to put pressure in some places more than others. And peel that off. Oh, that's not too bad. It's not too bad at all. So there's my line, which is, I just think is probably not too bad. Now we have to trim this piece of clay. I've measured the circumference of this jar so I know how long to make it. I've measured the depth so I know how deep I want it to be. And the way that I'm going to cut it is I'm going to use my metal ruler to put along the top edge and then run my craft knife along it. And then I would use that measurement from there, making sure it's deep enough obviously on this side, and then use that measurement to measure down. And what I've done is gone along, I won't measure it now, then going to use this little rickrack type of blade. You can get these sort, I found this end interfered with what you were doing, it's sort of imprinted, so I'm using this, which is a Fimo one. You could do a straight edge if you wanted, but I think the rickrack finish looks better at the bottom of the jar, and I just do that. And you know what, make sure you're using the sharp side when you cut it, and you can see it makes a nice little finish. Now I'm not going to worry too much about this one because I've got an example made, so let's go over to that. Here's my example, and I think when I come to put it on the jar you're going to see I'm not using anything to stick it on there, I'm just going to put it straight on. I'm going to follow the top of the jar with that straight edge. And as you can see, the bottom edge makes a nice sort of neat finish. If you start trying to wrap it round and slice it off, I mean you can do, but I find that very hard to get neat. and this to me just makes a pretty little edge. But if you don't have that, just do a straight one. It just takes a bit of faffing to make it right. So I've wound this around the jar. Now I'm just going to go around again and pay more attention this time because I was talking. Excuse me. As you put it around the jar, try and keep it straight, and also just a little bit of pressure on it. We've got a nice deep print, so we can afford to push a little. And you can check inside the jar too to see if you can see any air bubbles. What we're trying to do is make sure that you don't get any air under that clay. When I get to the end of the video, I'm also going to show you some different types of ways of decorating the lid, because obviously you want a nice matching lid for your jar. So I'm pushing that around, and when I get to here, overlaps a little. I'm going to cut in at an angle with a straight blade. I am not very good at doing this, so I think I'll trim that bit first. Where I've pushed onto there, it's made like a little line, if you can see that. I'm going to trim along that line, just a little bit longer than that line. So it overlaps a little. And then I'm going to trim in at an angle now. I'll see if it works. This is not my strong suit. What is, we ask ourselves. So in at an angle, like that. And then peel away the excess. Not too bad. And then I can just fold this in. Now the join is not going to be perfect because the sheet isn't made that way. So I'm just going to show you what to do then. Just make sure this is a bit neater. Line that up, that's good. The bottom's not too bad, but it's a little bit out, so I'm just going to use the rest of this rickrack braid to just do that little edge there to just kind of make it look the same depth. It's not perfect, but it will help. Again, use the sharp side of the blade. I don't know what I've got against the sharp side of the blade today, but not much actually. There you go. Okay, that's better. And you can see here we've got this join. Now, I find if you use a tool, a little ball tool, you can maybe just fake the shape of some little buttons on there. Just kind of blend it in. Where you see it looking round, just draw a little bit in. I just like to fiddle around a bit. You're not going to make it perfect, but you can sort of disguise it a little bit. Alright, so here we are. We don't look like we've got any air bubbles. You can always poke a needle through if you do. That's a little bit high there. Don't know. Yep, I can undo it good. You see, if it just is worth, at this stage before you've fired it, having a little bit of a fiddle around and making it a lot better than it would have been. Okay, I'm back. The join is redone, and as you can see, I've now got a plaster on my thumb because I injured myself in the process. So the advice I'd give you from that is be careful when you're using a blade. Oh my lord. Okay, here it is. Here's our jar, and it's looking rather dull. So what I'm going to do now is to start to pick out these buttons using mica powder. Now you can use you know, a different sheet if you want to, and if you were doing flowers, perhaps you would colour the flowers or the middles or the leaves. Obviously you don't have to use buttons. I'm using buttons on mine because this sheet is so pretty. So I'll choose a button. This really isn't rocket science, and just apply the mica powder. I'm going to have to look at what I'm doing here. To the button, and actually I find the curve of the design around the glass helps me to do it. Now it's not going to be perfect, it will touch some of the other things occasionally. You can't rest it down obviously because it's going to flatten your design on the back, but you can do that and then just maybe take a brush and just pick up some of the mica powder and go around the edge and make it look more like it's the whole button. If I'm using mica powder for any length of time, I like to wear a mask because if I breathe mica powder in, it makes my nose sore, and I would advise you to wear a mask if you're using this. You don't want lungs full of glitter. So there's our first button. As you can see, not quite perfect, but that's fine. If you do get a little bit that really offends you, you can wipe it off with a baby wipe and make it a bit more perfect. But you're going to do the whole jar, so believe me, you won't want to be too bothered. What I would probably do is go around and do all the copper coloured ones now. Just dot them around, randomise them a little bit, because these are spilled buttons, they're not laid out in a pattern. Next I'm going to use this violet. And these are Pearl-Ex powders, but I'm going to use a mixture of Pearl-Ex and some Perfect Pearls. Is that one? That's Perfect Pearls. This is Pearl-Ex. So I'll do that one purple. Look how cute that is. When you choose your colours, do try them out. Just get a little scrap of clay like this and just bung them on next to one another to see that they suit one another, and to see whether or not, you know, they're going to pop or whether they're going to look dull compared to each other. And also some of the colours, the interference colours and duo colours, you know, they're not going to look right. You want to make sure that they do come out nicely. Some of them are not made for this kind of application. They just won't look good. So I've got that silver one there. Now you can see there I've gone a bit, that one spreads quite a lot, that silver one. I find it quite hard to handle. So I'm going to take that off and just narrow it down a bit. And I will carry on until the whole thing is done. Now I'm not going to make you sit through that. So I will be back when this is decorated and when it's baked. See you in a mo. And I'm back. Hi everybody. This is the finished product, and look at that. Isn't that sweet? It's come out really, really nicely. I'm so pleased with it. And you can see where I put the mica powder onto each button. It's not all perfect. Some of them look a little bit weird and out of focus. The join is not perfect, but on the whole, I think the effect is really lovely, and I'm so pleased with it. I baked it in the oven according to manufacturer's instructions, or the Fimo instructions. I used black Fimo Professional, by the way, and I used an oven thermometer, which I would always recommend. By the way, the thickness of the clay here is number 2 on my pasta machine, or if you were using slices of cereal packet either side to roll out your clay, it would be 3 thicknesses. Just telling you that because not everyone has a pasta machine. So now we need to talk about lids, I feel. And before I get onto the lid for this, I'm going to show you a couple that I made before. Here's a lid that I made very early on when I was claying, and it's got a slice of cane on top of some sort of textured brown. And I cut it out. And what I did was, because we have these annoying lids that pop up, I glued it just onto the middle there and didn't worry too much about it. It looks fine. Next, I decorated a jar which is very similar to the one that we did today. In fact, it's the same sort of jar, but I did it with tiles. And the lid for that, again, we have this problem with the popping up thing and the flexibility. I used tiles and I sort of floated them on some liquid clay and settled them down into that. And of course, I put edging and stuff onto it. But that's another way of doing it. It's just so that these actually weren't sort of just pushed up against one another on some liquid clay, and it's come out pretty nicely. The lid for the button jar that we did today is here, and what I tried to do with it was just cut out a disc, sit it on the lid and cook it, and I thought that once it was done I would glue it on and that would be the end of the story. By the way, when I say I glue things, I use Crafter's Pick, the Ultimate. It's very worn out now, mine, which is a kind of water-based super glue, it claims to be. And it works really well. But if you're in America, you might use World Bond, something like that. Anyway, I did this and it baked in a kind of weird curling up on one side way, and it didn't look very nice at all. So I decided to finish it off, rather than making a clay sort of snake and starting baking it again. I decided to finish it off using this, which is just a piece of the sort of leather that you string beads on, and I will glue that into that little groove there, and I think you'll agree that that is going to make a really nice finished look. And by the magic of video, here is the finished product with this all glued down, and I think it looks really sweet. I sealed the top already, and I will seal the sides. Because mica powder, it's better if you do seal it in place. I used Americana Duraclear gloss varnish, but there are other things that you can use. I mean, I got that because I'm in the UK, but there are other things you can use, and what I'll do is in the description I'll link you to a good website where you can get really top-notch information about that. Thank you all for watching. If you've got any comments or questions, leave them down below in the comments section. Do like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project and I love you all. Bye.